Yeah.
Okay. Julie McDonald,
Here.
Hannah Bazinet,
Here.
Jim C.
Here.
Millie Schoonover,
Here.
Michael Campnich,
Here.
Chanel McKinley,
Yet to arrive.
Timothy O'Connor.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
members of the council, I sent out an email on Tuesday summarizing what our municipal code calls for with out-of-town participation at council meetings. So ordinarily, the mayor, as you know, presides over the meeting, but our municipal code does not provide for someone participating by teleconference to preside at the meeting. And so at this point, I'd recommend the council designate somebody to act as chair for the meeting tonight in compliance with the municipal code requirements.
Any volunteers? I nominate Jim.
Second it.
Millie outranks me though. I was high ranked before, but she's got me on by 5 or 6 years now.
Go for it, buddy.
So Tim, Jim C's been selected to preside over the meeting.
That's good. So we'll make Jim see the pro tem tonight.
Okay, we're ready to proceed. Start with the consent agenda. Have a motion on that.
Move to adopt. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'll go to hearing from the public. It's now open for public comment. Anybody has anything they want to say about anything on the agenda is welcome to speak now.
Is this the point where I would speak on? Do I microphone or just stand up?
You can just stand up and give your name so the
Yeah.
record knows.
Chet Powell, co-owner of the Bay Company. And the only thing on the agenda that I'd like to speak to is the consideration of ATV, UTVs on public streets. I would like the council to consider this and consider not opting out. Opting out is, in my opinion, the easy way to take. I'd like to see the council try this. It's always been the argument in the past that we had a state highway coming right down through Main Street. And that was always the reason that nobody ever went for it. And I think that now that the state's got the thing coming up on the first part of the year here, I'd like to see the council give it a try. And you can always go back and change things later. But if you try to opt out of it now, then basically you've not even tried. And I just think it's worth giving it a try. I think there would be a lot of support for it. And it's really not any different than a motorcycle, really. Doesn't have turn signals. You'd require insurance. Wrangell does it. Thorn Bay does it. Coffin Cove does it. There's a lot of places that do it. They won't be able to go on streets over 45 miles an hour. So the main highway between, Craig and Quogue would be basically off limits. So, but I'd like you to give it consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak on that if I could too.
Sure, just state your name, please.
Richard Hansen,
Okay.
DJ. I'm in favor too. One of the reasons why I'd like the city of Craig to look at it in a standpoint of some revenue potential too, because I know there is going to be a burden on the city if something like this happens. Policing may have to be more. I mean, you're going to have certain areas, but there is a great revenue potential on this. There's a way, and I haven't looked at what the state has proposed, but I know in other places that you can buy a permit from the city to ride on city streets too, so there's that option. Plus, as a harbor user, I believe that having this go into effect would alleviate a ton of parking problems that we have at the harbor right now, because you're gonna get lodges, you're gonna get other groups that are gonna go to UTVs to bring their people in and out. I know of several of them. We kind of kicked this idea around 3 or 4 years ago a little bit, talking with the state troopers about what could be done and what couldn't. But what that's gonna do is free up parking. I know there's concerns of kids and the things that go on, but I think there's a lot of upside to this. I think if there is downside, there is a huge potential for upside. I mean, doing, whatever that is as far as ATV training for younger kids and putting on courses and doing those kind of things, I think all of those are a great revenue driver. I mean, everybody's looking to generate a little bit of revenue in this day and age, and I think adding this, as something that can be done here would do a lot of that. I think there's huge potential.
Thank you. Brian? State
Brian Castle. I was in Wrangell a couple weeks ago, and and I saw all the UTVs and stuff driving around town. But then I saw one of those little Japanese trucks that I always wanted, to get, because they're just a 2-seater and they're 4-wheel drive, and and they buy them real cheap. The Japanese made them so they could go down their narrow streets, And so anyway, I saw some of those driving around. And so I stopped one of those guys and said, how are you guys driving these around when I didn't think they were legal, because I found out that they don't allow them in the United States to be license plate. They can't put a license plate on them because they don't go fast enough. So anyway, and that's why I'm in support of what these guys are saying, is because that would allow, back up. So what they do there is they put a sticker on them, just like you would a snow machine sticker, exact same one, that we have to go to the DMV and get for our snow machines. And they also do that for the UTVs and ATVs. So they do that same thing for these little trucks, and the little trucks are, they have turn signals and lights and everything that a normal truck has. They're just little. And so anyway, I think this would be a great opportunity and a chance for, people to use those or get those here. I see some in Kaufman now. And so anyway, I'm in support of the same thing that these two guys were talking about, is because that would be a chance for people to use those. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything in the open for public comment period? Or anybody want to speak to the authorization for the city administrator to negotiate the lease with public health for the BOW healthcare facility? If not, moving on. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything for a report?
Yeah, I'm in Seattle, stuck down here, and we've been working on getting a new city administrator going through the committee and the application processes, and hopefully we got that resolved this evening. So at this point, as far as the ATV thing goes, and I'm not too sure on this, unless we limit those speed limits down pretty low and increase the EMS people. I think it'd be a pretty dangerous thing, but we'll be considering it, I hope. And that's about it for me.
Okay, thank you. Administrator?
Well, Mr. Chairman, thanks. I have a staff report in the packet. I will have 2 things to add to it. One is just a reminder that November 27th is sales tax free day in Craig. It was designated by the council in May. So that'll be the day after Black Friday here in town. So again, as a reminder. November 27th. And then the other item is that got an email reminder today from Guardian reminding us that the community-wide coverage expires this month, and with inquiry from our contact there, asking if the council had any interest in renewing the program. So I just told them I would pass it on to the council as an informational item. Be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for John?
Do you happen to remember the total cost for that?
50,000?
Just under 50.
48,000.
John, do you know what the renewal fee is?
He didn't offer a renewal fee, just inquired if the city was interested.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, treasurer?
I have submitted a written report and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions? Moving on, aquatic manager.
I submitted a written report, but got a couple of things to add. So since the report, swim team is in state right now. They're actually on a plane. Out of our 13 swimmers, we had 7 high schoolers go to state, which is remarkable because I think at most we've had 3. During regionals, we broke 9 of the records that were on the board and a couple of state records as well. So that's even cooler. A couple of the kids have very high potential to take state championship as freshmen this year. So I'm waiting on my phone basically to find out what's going on. We've got wrestlers up in Anchorage, swimmers in Anchorage right now. Lots of things happening. We got the new swimsuit dryer that came in today. Lifeguard stands on the way. Big toy or new big toy. We're waiting on the quote for shipping for that because that bad boy is coming from New Zealand. But it'll be here. We are going to have limited hours the week of Thanksgiving. That is in my report. I just didn't have for sure dates, but that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it'll probably be 10 to 6 because Chris and I will be in Ketchikan doing some training. So it'll leave me with Lewis and Ethan and probably Ben because I should have Ben trained up enough by then or to be on. Other than that, not too much. The swim club's going to be in Petersburg next weekend, which I found that one out yesterday. But I also heard that Petersburg shut everything down again. So that's very possible that that's not happening. I don't know if Chris knows that yet due to COVID. So right now we're just kind of on our wait to see if it's gonna happen sort of thing. But we're just kind of rooting for the swim team right now because our swim team, we normally have 6 kids at max and we have 13 or 14 this year. Never have we had half the team go to state. And the bulk of them are freshmen. So, and that's the big one, is the bulk of them are freshmen. So, yeah.
Great.
That is all I have.
Thank you. City clerk?
I submitted a written report, and I'd like to add that the next Craig City Council meeting would be set for November 18th, 2021. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? City planner?
I submitted a written report. I did want to add, we got an email from the state of Alaska regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds, which is the pot of money that's the newest version of the CARES money that you guys were familiar with. A number of things we did with it last year, including the Medevac insurance that Sean mentioned earlier that's about to expire. So the state, the program is set up to where communities were designated a certain amount of dollars, and then there was dollars that went to communities in the unorganized census areas and the unorganized borough. And so we get funding from both pots. We've already received about $150,000 of the ARPA funding for the community portion. The amendment that we just got in the mail says that the total amount of community funding will be about $300,000, so there's another $150,000 that we're likely to see sometime next year. And then the census area funding, our portion of that comes out to about $400,000. As soon as the amendment is signed, the state is ready to disperse the first half of that, and then the remaining $200,000 will be dispersed next year. So I plan on bringing the amendment in a more detailed memo to the council at the next meeting, and looking for the council's guidance on executing that amendment. But at the same time, we'll likely have a discussion, another discussion about the use of some of those ARPA funds. Council will recall the only use that we've designated funds for so far was some wage support for the child care center, which an extension of that agreement is on the agenda for tonight. But just a reminder that funding that we gave to the child care center that you guys will be talking about a little bit later was part of this ARPA funding, but some of the funds that we already received. We'll be talking about that more in detail at the next meeting. We'll bring a memo to the council and ask for some more input from the council on how you'd like to see that funds used. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on that one?
Brian, did any of the rules and regs on the new ARPA money change?
There are some minor changes. The largest change of the whole program is the revenue replacement. We've done some early calculations, and it looks like there's about $140,000 to $150,000 of revenue for calendar year 2020 that we may be eligible to basically declare lost revenue replacement. That money would go to the city that could be then used for a large number of purposes, authorized municipal services. There's also some allowances in the ARPA program specifically for water and wastewater projects. And so some of the water and wastewater projects that we have on the list may be part of the discussion of how to use the funding that's available. But the bulk of the guidance for the ARPA money is very similar to the CARES money. So it allows the same sorts of direct COVID support for protective equipment and those sorts of things. It allows for business and individual support programs. So again, we'll have a fuller discussion at the next meeting when I bring the amendment to the council for consideration.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Questions? On the Corvus design, that's for Harbor, right?
Well, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to put in my. So yes, the Corvus design came in and just finished, or our work. They're nearly finished with the concept drawings for the upland development and for the new harbor. I will be bringing those, the preferred alternative final drawings to the council next meeting. Corvus was also the only, recently put out a request for proposals for some assistance with some long-term planning for the cemetery. And Corvus was the only respondent to the request for proposals. Their proposal looks good, and I've asked them for a cost based on a modified scope of work, and so I'm still waiting on them back to me. But, so Corvus, after the council approves, will likely be working on that project as well. But right now, the only project that they're actively working on is that cannery set.
If they're coming back with a final draft, do you anticipate the Harbor Committee or the planning committee looking at that before it comes to the council?
Yeah, in fact, I've sent it out. Hans has been out of town, so I haven't had a chance to ask him to send it out to the Harbor Committee members yet. But I've already sent that out to the Harbor Department and the Planning Commission to start to look at. So I'm hoping for any last input before the drawing comes to the council on November 18th.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Fire and EMS coordinator. You on there, Minnie? Looks like
She's I'm not surprised she's not available.
Thank you, Virginia. Harbor Master.
I've submitted a written report, but would be happy to answer any questions.
And by not being available, I mean she's excused. Just
That's fine.
make it clear.
That's fine.
Okay.
I understood that.
All right.
Any questions for Hans? Library.
Oh, look at me like that.
You're leaving, I'm gonna look at you.
I submitted a written report. I do want to add, we filled our part-time library clerk position. Samantha Wilson, who Victoria hired back first. But she's going to be picking up Saturdays and maybe some afternoon hours. So we can have as much coverage as possible up there until a new director is hired. The last grant that I applied for this year was ARPA money that came to the state library through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And so that grant, I requested funds for some plexiglass partitions and things up at the library so that on the off chance we had another huge COVID spike again, we could keep the library as open as possible because people would just be able to be more separated. And then when applying for that grant, there was just a little checkbox at the end that said, would you also like to receive $2,500 for books and other materials? And I said, yes, please. So there's that, just about probably doubled our book and DVD budget for this year. So that'll be really nice. And I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you to John for taking the chance and hiring me when he was not very confident that that was a good idea, but he did it anyway. And I have absolutely loved working here for the city. I'm so grateful to live here. I'm grateful to everybody for just support and kindness and friendship. And please know that my leaving has nothing to do with any irritations on the job or hardships or anything like that. I've absolutely loved it, and I'm only leaving because my kid is, I get to homeschool her, and I'm super excited, but I'm really gonna miss being the director. I'm gonna volunteer, I'm gonna join the board. You're not gonna be able to get rid of me. That's it, thank you.
That's a plus. It's been a pleasure having you work here. The library is in really good shape. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cry.
I got Kleenex.
Police chief.
I submitted a report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You're not gonna cry either?
Yeah.
No.
Anybody have anything for RJ? Thank you. Public Works.
I submitted a report and it's required. I'm happy to answer any questions concerning that report.
Any questions for Russell?
How are the new dumpsters working, the bear-proof dumpsters?
We had one initial complaint. Other than that, everybody seems to be pretty happy.
Is it complaint on how to open it?
There was a elderly lady that it had blown over. It was a little large for her to have to pick up. So we're going to compile those comments over the next year and lay some options. That's the only one that's that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Recreation.
Well, I wrote a report, but I don't know if I sent it in time. But I did, okay, so we got a report, that's good, that's good. I have a few extra things that we're doing. We had skating on Friday. I had 30 kids show up. It was great. They had a blast. I felt wonderful afterwards. It was so much fun. We're gonna do it again this Friday and every Friday until Thanksgiving and probably continue on. I shot myself in the foot by sharing Samantha. But it's all for the greater good, so it'll work out just fine. But I'm also gonna add a Tuesday open gym. And the bazaars are filling up nicely, not overly full, just about the right amount. It should be a very nice, both of them should be good events, and I have enough people wanting different ones, but It'll be a blast. There's bazaars starting this weekend all the way through till mid-December. Now, I do want to ask about the bounce houses. We are getting a lot of people requesting them. We have not been renting them out. We do have I love a Ghostbusters sanitizing machine. It works out really great, and that would work really well on the bouncers. But I need a little costume to use it, but it'll be great. So that could work out. We just need to find people that can put them up and set them down. I couldn't do it before I broke myself, and I certainly cannot now. But if you let the 4th of July committee, we can get some people to do it again if it's okay with y'all. Do you think about that? I see you nodding. Okay.
I'm good with it.
Samantha has been helping me clean and organize, and it's really wonderful, so. And I'm not gonna cry because Angela's leaving, but see you later. Any questions? Don't be afraid, I'd answer. So does that sound like okay for the bounce house, or do you guys wanna talk about it later? You wanna just nod and say, go ahead?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Victoria, what time is open gym on Tuesdays?
3 to 5. And I'm gonna see how that goes. If I get lots of kids, I'll continue doing it on like every day, but right now I'm just kind of slowly getting it in there and retraining them to listen to me. They all do a pretty darn good job. So, thank you, John. It's been a great time, so I'm with you. Thank you. Even though you're just down the street.
Parks and public facilities.
I've submitted a written report and would be happy to answer any questions anybody has. Any, I want to add, I enjoyed work for John for almost 7 years, or 6.5 years, so. Sad to see him go, but anyway, look forward to the future and seeing what the future will for City of Craig.
Any questions for Doug? Thank you, Doug. Okay.
Just as important, Andrew.
Okay, everybody done the reading of correspondence? Anybody want to pull anything out? Michael?
John, what's our little permanent fund, what was it at here? I know you keep pretty close track.
It's a bit of an obsession, yeah, I have to admit. It was $16.4 million today.
Yes, I thought it probably must have went up a lot in the last few weeks here, so it's remarkable.
Okay, moving on. Consideration of resolutions and ordinance number 742. Looking for a motion on that?
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and adopted, moved and seconded to adopt ordinance number 742. Discussion.
This is really a renewal of the same lease that Public Health has had with us since they started to occupy the Fitzwilliam Health Care Center, and then for years before at the old clinic building. It's just the lease expires at the end of this year. They're looking for a new lease under the same terms, a 2-year lease and 3 1-year renewals. The price is already kind of constructed around costs to provide services there, and built-in increases to the price of the lease based on a consumer price index. So we'll recalculate the value of the lease through the negotiation process. This is a government entity, so this is a below market value lease, so no appraisals required. No other terms. They're really not looking to change any terms, so this is just a renewal of the existing lease.
Looks good to me. So, we ready to vote? Okay. Roll call, right?
Hannah Bethany?
Yes.
Millie Schoonover?
Yes.
Michael Cameron?
Yes.
Julie McDonald,
Yes.
Jim C.
Yes.
Motion is passed. Thank you, council.
Okay, next, unfinished business, establish the sale price of city property to Alaska Power Telephone Lot 6, J.T. Brown subdivision. So this is a discussion we're having, right?
And ultimately, we'll be looking for some direction. The council will recall last year, AT&T applied to buy the piece of land the generator sits on at the J.T. Brown Industrial Park. The council had wanted to have some discussion about land values, particularly of those commercial parcels. So AT&T late last year had an appraisal done of the property, and the appraised value came back at $110,000. So I'm really looking for some guidance from the council about the price to take back to AT&T and during the negotiation. So $110,000 is the appraised value. Based on that current appraisal, the property assesses at about $96,000. So the appraisal is about $15,000 higher than the current assessment. The council for market value sales is the minimum sale price is set by the appraisal, and the council is can certainly add to that sale price as well. So I'm kind of looking for some strong direction from the council on where the price needs to be in the rest of the negotiations with AT&T.
Council?
Council, can I speak on this for a minute here, Jim?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that we might consider holding that property in lease instead of selling that property. I don't believe that appraisal gives us a fair price for that at all. And I believe that we'd be better off to retain it for lease purposes, because we only have a limited amount of land, and the revenue from the leases, I think, is just as good as selling it, if not better. And it's something we need to consider, because like I said, they aren't making any more land. It's getting too hard to come by. And so I think the council needs to consider whether or not we really do want to sell this, as well as what kind of a price we would put on it if we did sell it. Because that appraisal seems awfully low to me. From what I reviewed that with John, I wasn't very impressed with that appraisal. So just consider that, council, please.
Anybody in the council have any comments?
Yeah, Jim, I pretty much feel the same way. I feel that we should hang on to the property because the city doesn't have very many parcels left.
So Brian, what do we get on a yearly lease from this? Approximate, that we don't need to be exact here.
I got it, sorry. 8% of $95,600.
Okay, so we're getting $8,000 a year on that.
No, that sounds about right.
So we're making 8% on their money, which is the way to go.
Yeah.
I was looking again, I know I've asked this before, but I see this, but I'm not exactly on, somewhere in here it's gonna say square feet, it's like, it's a lot. Of square
Yeah.
feet, right?
It's 23,127 square feet.
Yeah, this is one of the larger lots out there.
And we could do a long lease too, if it helps the business, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they have a structure and very necessary piece of equipment that sits there when the power goes out here. Actually, it's at this point, it's there to run that deal they have with our tenants out at J.P. Brown Park. Because they're buying all the power from them instead of making their own power, so they have some kind of a deal with them on their rate. So I don't think they're gonna move it anymore.
So this says that the rent was $5,775 a year?
I think that's right.
Okay, so it's 6%.
Because we haven't had these properties appraised for a long time.
10 years.
Oh, so now that, right, we're basing it, it should be based on the appraisal, not this one, right? So now that the appraised price is $98,000, so the lease would go up based on that.
The most recent assessed value is about $96,000, and that's what the new lease will be based on. Not that, we generally don't, for new leases or updates to leases, we have an option either to use recent appraisal or to use assessed values as the basis of the lease price, and then 8% of that value is the minimum lease. So as it stands, likely it would be 8% of the $96,000, so it would be appropriate to also use 8% of the $110,000 if that's the direction council wants to go.
Yeah.
I will say that AT&T paid for this appraisal.
That's what I was gonna ask.
We did. The council approved for me to go out to the appraiser, have this appraisal done, and then add it to the cost of the sale. If the sale was finalized, AT&T already had the appraisal done.
Did they tell you what the cost was?
No, I didn't ask. I can certainly ask that. If you would like to, we can build repayment of that in the lease or not, depending on how the council would like to structure that.
I'd like to see us lease it instead of sell and somehow compensate them for the appraisal.
I agree.
Everybody else okay with that?
Right back to AT&T and let them know that that's the direction the council wants to go.
How long are the leases normally?
There's really no set. I mean, we just talked about renewing the public health lease, a 2-year lease with 3 1-year renewals. We just recently renewed the Petro Marine lease.
But the AT&T one,
35 years. I think the Petro Marine lease was originally a 5-year lease with a series of 5-year renewals.
yeah. Because it makes them feel more comfortable as a business to have a longer lease. I'm not looking to, I don't think we have any plans to use the land, we just want to have it available. So a longer lease might make a business feel more comfortable.
Their last one was 10 years.
10 years? Yeah.
Expired in June.
Okay.
I carry that back to AT&T.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, well, with that, we're going to go on to new business. Consider ATV usage on public roads in Frank.
Mr. Chairman, there's an item in the packet, cover memo describing the pending regulation, implementation of the pending state regulation, newspaper article that I downloaded from the Anchorage Daily News, and then a frequently asked question item from the Department of Public Safety as to the regulation of potential ATV use on municipal streets. You just need to know what direction the council wants to take in response to the regulation that becomes effective January 1st, 2022.
I'll start.
Agenda.
Oh.
If I could just I did some research today just so I could educate the council on what some of the other communities in the southeast are doing with this. I spoke with Coak and they're planning on opting out. Sitka is planning on opting out. Ketchikan is planning on opting out. Petersburg right now has an ordinance that prohibits ATV use. They're gonna do research to see if that covers them. If it doesn't, they plan on opting out. Haynes allows it on their borough roads, but none of the state roads. And their intention is to opt out prior to the new year. Skagway has an ordinance not allowing them, and they are gonna be researching that to see whether or not they need to opt out or if they're gonna be covered under the umbrella that they currently have. Wrangell does allow ATV use, side-by-sides, things of that nature. I spoke with the chief there, and he assumes that their council will opt in, I guess would be one way to say it. But he said that they have a tremendous amount of issues with ATVs, side-by-sides. He credits about 95% of all of their issues with the youth. Ages like 12 to 16 is the bulk of the issues. ATVs, I guess, basically stamped it on their frames for off-road use only. They handle totally different on pavement than they do on dirt. They have a tendency to flip, roll. You can wheelie them. I see a lot of more downside than upside than if we don't do something to prohibit it.
Okay, a couple of my comments.
RJ, I have a question there, RJ, on that. If they were to opt in on this thing, can we set the speed limit for those lower than automobiles? And the enforcement fines higher than normal to dissuade people from going fast on these things?
I do know that the city opts per ordinance that you can go, I believe it's greater than but not less than what a state fine has already opted to. With the way this is structured, I would have to reread it before I could really tell you if the city would have that ability to do that. I mean, if the city does opt to do it, allow this, I do think that there needs to be more stricter regulations just for potential problems. And I know it was brought up with the little snow machine ATV sticker. You can, regardless of this coming forth or not, anybody can get that sticker. I own 2 quads myself. You can get them registered. It's like $5 for 5 years. And I've got ATVs, and I would love to be able to use them, but I foresee way too much bad things and good things for ATVs, use on all the roads in the community. Yeah, but we don't know whether or not we could set the speed limit lower than vehicle speed limit. We won't know that until you look into it, or is that what you're saying? I would need to revisit it to see. I believe that we would be able to, but I just can't give you 100% on that. Okay.
I have a question. Is what we got in our packet, is that the actual text of the law? Because it's really confusing. It's like, first of all, in order to drive, you have to be 16 years old.
Right.
But they say the driver doesn't have to have a helmet, but if you have a motorcycle, a driver has to have a helmet till they're 21.
I think what's changing is not the statute, but the regulation. And I did not print that out for inclusion in the packet. But we can certainly bring that forward.
Well, there certainly is no reason to have any kids driving ATVs, period, under 16. We do, pretty much we've always given the special dispensation for people to go out and drag the ball field and all those kind of things that are needed for Little League. But I can recall how much trouble we had with them 35 years ago. Because when somebody runs on one of those, they're at a serious advantage. I know how many DWIs we had on ATVs. You remember how many times we got Scott on his bike? I remember we chased him. Oh my goodness. Anyway, we have a little bit more time. I wanna see what the actual, whether there are more rules involved in this or not, because what I see here, it's like, this is like open season.
And
That's an absolute no.
I mean, the city we can make rules to say they have to be over 16, helmet rules. We also, to augment some of the concerns, we also could we put a curfew on it too? Could we put, not,
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me that the state is doing this when you can't even take an off-road motorcycle on the road, and you still can't. They didn't change that. When you're gonna be using the same arm signals, I mean, if they changed that so I could take.
I just know I have a side-by-side and it's pretty loud. Like, I would not feel comfortable driving it at night around. So, I mean, I think there'd be some ways where we could allow it with restrictions.
There's not anywhere in town that you can drive over 25 anyways.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
If you try to turn the four-wheeler at 25 miles an hour, just regular J-turn, you're gonna roll it. And that's our biggest concern is the speed, and also wearing helmets. And the only way to slow that down is you slow that speed limit down to 15 miles an hour and make them wear helmets and put fines in place that definitely make them think about it, $500 fine for breaking the speed limit and $1,000 a second time wouldn't be unheard of. I mean, these things are deadly. I've had 3 friends killed on dirt roads, much less pavement. They're not good for operating at high speeds on any roads, much less pavement. Pavement's the worst thing in the world on them. And they just scare me to death because I've been on them for 30 years, logging and other things, trapping and everything, and they are dangerous. So, something we need to look at pretty seriously if we're going to consider it.
But it's not something that we have to do tonight.
That's correct.
I think we should look a little further into it.
I think every vehicle should be driven safely. That's kind of a given. And it does say 16 years old and over. It's not a kid thing.
Well, part of EMS, I wouldn't look forward to having to put people in body bags from riding these things. It kind of is something that just scares me. So, something we need to keep in mind.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I think Michael had his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can see some things that would give me concern. My inclination would be, if we wanted to consider this, I would be more inclined to think of putting in like a higher age limit or guideline on it, rather than a speed limit. A speed limit, once you got somebody who's doing 15 and a 25, that's going to create complications of itself. I would be more inclined to, if we did this, to see some kind of an age requirement where whether it's 18 or 21, no permit licenses, things like that, and something along the lines of where you're trying to assure whoever has the ability to do this, or has the privilege of doing it, that they've had some experience and they have some sense of responsibility. They've been on the road for a while.
Yeah.
That would be kind of my feeling.
I agree.
Yeah, it does say they have to have a valid driver's license, but then again, who's had training on? You got to take a test to be able to drive a motorcycle, which is really easy to drive. I think we don't have to make a decision on this tonight.
I'd be happy to sit in if we want to put a committee together, chat, and police chief and a council member or two, or a member of the public, and get some people down and talk about it and see if we can and I'm still not committing to it, but just, kick around all the pros and the cons of it.
I agree, Mike, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Mike. I believe that's what we need to do, is form a committee on this and consider it with representatives from the public as well as from the council.
And I mean, one of the things I can see a committee doing is a little bit of what, our police chief has already done, is talk to some other communities that maybe have allowed this, communities of our size. I know they do it in Kaufman and Thorn Bay and stuff, but there's a world of difference in the amount of traffic in those communities than here. So, we have some research to do. I'm willing to talk about it.
Okay, so I'm only the chair. I don't have the power to do anything on this. Correct?
Typically, appointment to committees is a mayoral function.
Right. So.
Which the mayor can do really at any time. The council
Okay.
does have some exercise of veto authority, as you know.
Right.
I think that's unlikely. It's unlikely to exercise veto authority or something like this. In the meantime, when the mayor gets back, if he's inclined, he can appoint a group. Staff can prepare a copy of the new regulation for some background information. We can also take other steps the council might direct in preparation for helping the council or the committee decide what it wants to recommend.
I'll ask Chet, are you willing to put a couple hours into this with us to talk to us?
Yeah.
With this, okay. I think he'd be a good person to have on, and then we can decide other people, the mayor is the one who would decide, but I just, you're here, so I'd like to give you a chance to put your 2 cents into the equation here, just like everybody else.
I have no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Well, put DJ on there too.
Yeah. And we've got Brian too.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you can figure that out when you get back.
All right.
Okay.
We'll let him up tonight.
Okay, so we can move on to consider the request from the Craig Child Care Center to extend wage agreement.
Mr. Chairman, there are materials in the packet. Be happy to answer any questions the council might have. Just looking for some direction from you.
Basically, all we're doing is continuing on with the money we've already allocated to them. We're not giving them any more.
That's my recommendation, is extend the date through the end of the calendar year. I think the money will run out just before then, but it's a good target.
Our goal was we didn't want to allocate all of it because we wanted to see if it had a result. And it has. They've hired people, they're going down their waiting list, so I would
But
feel,
unless they get enough people to get it together to hold their own, we are not gonna, in my opinion, I'm not gonna vote to keep continuing
no,
to-
but,
to subsidize somebody else's,
no,
even if it's a nonprofit business, it's like. I
yes.
don't have any problem, this is money we've already allocated.
Yeah, so we've given half of it. So this would just be the second half. We wanted to make sure there was a result for our first half.
It's slightly more than half, Julie.
Oh, is it?
It's very
Okay.
close, yeah.
So I feel comfortable with it because now we've seen there was a result. So continue with the allocation.
If they have people, they still don't have kids. It's the problem.
Yeah. Well, I would move that the council extend the term of the existing agreement through December 31st, 2021, or until payments under the agreement reach 6,250 cap, already authorized, whichever occurs first.
Second.
Fingers crossed.
Any other discussion? Is this a, all of you voted at one time?
I believe that this is a voice vote.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion passes. Okay, now we're moving on to consider authorization of the city administrator employment contract.
Mr. Mayor, there is a cover memo and a draft contract in the packet. At this point, I think it's before the council for consideration.
My comment is it's what we asked to be done, so it's a thorough good contract, so I'm fine with it. Any other comments?
I think you guys, did good work on it. We're fortunate that we had good qualified applicants to interview and look at, and I appreciate the work that the council people put into this and members of the public who are part of the committee. I'm comfortable with what I see.
The item will require a motion and approved motion to implement.
Okay, I would move to approve the employment contract with Brian Templin for the position of city administrator based upon the draft employment agreement or the employment agreement that is provided with the packet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract. Any further discussion?
Question?
This is.
It's a voice vote,
This is a
Mr.
voice
Chairman.
vote. Okay. All in favor of approving the contract signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Thank you, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're moving on to considering approval of an audit engagement letter.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. This is really a housekeeping item. The engagement letter is a common function that auditors engaging with their clients when conducting independent financial audits. This is much like the engagement letter considered and approved in prior years. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. You can see a lot of it is, as we would call, boilerplate. There is a specified dollar amount on page 6 of the document, which is consistent with prices we've paid recently and consistent with prices paid by other communities. It's for the coming audit, for the fiscal year that ended last June. I'd recommend the council authorize staff to sign the independent auditor's engagement letter for the coming, or for the FY21 financial audit.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council authorize staff to sign an independent author's engagement letter regarding fiscal year 2021 financial audit.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to sign the independent auditor's engagement letter. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Haven't we used the same auditors now for several years?
Many years.
Decades.
Yes, should there be an effort? I have no problem. First of all, I don't know anything about audits. This is not my skill set, but I have no problem with this company. But should there be an effort to be diversifying who does their audits or no?
It is a common practice. Some organizations will purposefully change auditors periodically.
Okay.
By their own bylaws or statutes, depending on the organization.
Is that something
we
should
don't have that requirement, but there's nothing keeping the city from soliciting for a financial auditing company on a 2 or 3 or 5 year contract for subsequent years.
Yeah, I just something I'm thinking about, for good practices. And again, not right now. This is fine, but in the future, should we think about
Right. I would think a new one coming in would charge a little bit more money the first year, but after that, they.
Probably.
Didn't we put this out for bid? I mean, it was some years ago, but we did go through a process of asking for new bids on this, or am I mixing it up with something else?
I don't remember. We did go through the process to solicit assessors.
Maybe that was
I
it.
think maybe on 2 occasions in the last 30 years, maybe just once. I don't recall doing the same thing with auditing services, but I couldn't swear to that.
Okay, I think you're right on the assessors. I remember we did something like this some years ago. But I also think that it is a good practice to put it out to bid once in a while.
Yeah.
Because my
So
daughter has
maybe
her Mac and won't
it's
start
During
for
the
next
budget
year.
discussion, during this year's budget discussion, maybe the budget
Mm-hmm.
committee can come up with that and bring it back
Yeah.
to the council as part of the budget or something.
Can I speak there, Jim, for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see us look into an alternative if possible at some point. I agree that these guys should be changed out every few years or every, 5 years at minimum, but just to keep things honest or keeping things going. I'm not sure how to go about this process. I know it's difficult to find people where we're at and dealing with what we have, but it's something we should look into.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm the one that brought this up. I'm comfortable with moving forward today. I just wanted to throw it out there for consideration in the future.
yeah, I agree with that, Julie, and that's the same thing I'm thinking too. We need to complete this for this year and possibly next year, but we definitely should be kind of just shopping around.
Okay.
So,
Anybody else, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say we have to get somebody new. These people have been very good for us for a lot of years, decades. But I think that the principle of, putting it out to bid is legitimate, and I agree with that, but these people have done very good. Christina's done very, very good for us for decades.
And the decades haven't softened her up, that's for sure.
No, she's tough. She, we have to hold the mark with her. I did the audits with her many years ago, and I was harbor master, and they come in and they want to go through your paperwork stuff, and they do a good job. So I want to make sure I put that on record.
Yes, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Been dealing with her for
Yeah.
way more years than I wanted to
I mean, in my view, she's thorough, and she assesses a fair price. We would certainly expect to pay more. It's likely if we solicited a new auditor, but it is an appropriate conversation to have during the budget process.
Jim, talking to Melinda over at the school, they chose someone else because they were actually cheaper than Christine. So they're doing a new one this year.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor, and it would be a voice vote, Mr. Chairman.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody approving the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion
Jim.
passed, thank you.
Can you guys continue if I have to step out?
Yes, we still have quorum.
The question would be if everyone agreed, my understanding is, when the mayor has been on telephonically, that he can still vote in the past, is that correct?
Not the mayor, but the council member presiding over the meeting.
Right.
Has been able to vote.
You can still vote. Okay.
So then we
the
would
vote
still
has to
have
be
a
the
quorum.
same. If there's
And it would have to be 4 affirmative votes
Right.
for any motion.
I got a text that my daughter's been hurt and she's been crying for a while, so I'm gonna go home.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, the next thing up is. consider appropriation of funds from Alaska Permanent Capital Management Fund to reimburse the city general fund for payment made to Sturgeon Electric.
There was 2 grants, we have all the information in there, if you guys have more information that you have. Ryan and I can give those answers. But, asking that since the generators were installed at the school, that, the school funds at Alaska Permanent Capital, the interest from that is what we would use to cover that.
If it's an emergency or emergency shelter capabilities, does the ARPA money qualify to that?
I think likely could. I haven't looked at that specific question yet, but I think there's some likelihood that it could.
Can we look into that first?
Yeah.
Do we have time to wait, or is somebody waiting on money and chomping at the bit?
It's already been paid.
Oh.
The invoice has been paid. The memo in front of the council tonight is bookkeeping in essence. It's moving money from, moving interest money from the permanent capital fund investments for the school to cover the payment that the city made out of the city's general fund. But there's no, the contractor's not waiting for a payment. They've already been paid. So we can bring this back at the next meeting.
See if we can use ARPA funds for this, folks. Okay, we'll go there, Brian. Good question.
Yeah, good catch.
I'll work on that, and I'll bring that back to the council next meeting as part of the ARPA discussion.
Great, thank you, Brian. Okay, consider renewal of access permit for Alaska Greenland.
Mr. Chairman, there's a summary item in the packet, kind of reminding the council where we were earlier this year after I signed the access permit and Doug constructed the driving range facility. So that access permit expires January 31st, 2022. Doug has come here in the hopes of, that was a 1-year permit. Council can pass 2-year access permits by resolution. So the question here tonight is whether you want staff to prepare a resolution approving a 2-year access permit to extend the use of the driving range essentially through 2024. No, through for 2022 and 2023.
Okay, so the current one does expire in 21, not in 22 yet.
I got a copy of it here, let me check, but I think it expires in January.
Is it January 31st?
Yeah.
Oh, 22. Okay.
And there's a typo in the memo, it says gold driving range, of course it should say golf in the first paragraph.
Council, which direction do you want to go?
Would it help if I made any comment, or is it appropriate for me to comment now?
Go ahead.
Oh, concerns last year were the safety, and I had one minor injury this year, because I've essentially shut it down at Halloween, so it's not gonna operate again. Ever, if the permit's not renewed, but if it's renewed, it won't open again until spring anyway, but. So I had one minor injury of a kid that bounced off of the side of the thing and hit him and gave him a fat lip, and that was the only injury reported. There's concern about the location of it. I hope you all are aware of seeing that it takes up tideland that's not normally used as recreation area anyway. It's more of a transit area, and its location to the sewer plant makes it kind of not a very nice place when that wind's blowing and you get that sewer smell. Regardless, I designed it to give the general public priority use anyway, and so, and my thoughts panned out in reality that the people using the beach and the people using the range, the interaction between the two was so minimal that it never was even an issue. And nevertheless, there are still safety equipment on the range that helps protect the public anyway going forward. So, there's been a lot of talk of it's for profit, and it's kind of been used as a boogeyman word, making it sound dirty or something because it's for profit. Well, the opportunity wouldn't even present itself if somebody didn't make their own investment and their own time to do this, to provide this for the community as a different offering. So don't be misled that I've spent no money and have no investment in this. So I just didn't do this out of the kindness of my heart, not for a motivation for money, because I'm not going to be retiring in a mansion in Craig on a $5 bag golf range. It was more a COVID being shut in the house. I need something to do different because I'm going out of my mind here. It was what the genesis of the idea behind the golf range was. The biggest problem I had was security. And if I'm new to this, so that was the biggest lesson I learned was security. I believe everybody's nice and human beings are good, but I discovered they're not. That there's some people that aren't very good in the community. And so it was kind of a magnet for a youth group, a youth age for criminal activity for a little spell in the summer. And so I felt bad, like I was created this trap for these kids to get into trouble, but then I rethought that and gone full circle that if we want to raise good moral kids in our community, they need to be able to respect other people's property and obey the law, and so that was the only problem I had, was some juveniles that vandalized the business, and it's kind of in a spot where there's no electricity and no coverage, so I felt bad about that. And anyway, that was the only issues I've had, other than I didn't spend as much time as I wanted to down there because I wanted to keep the place clean, which I did. I picked up trash when I could, but I don't know, it was kind of an experiment. It's gone a year, we've got a year experience behind us. I would like to continue at least another year, but it'd be easy just to get two if the council's authorized. There's no guarantee that I'm gonna run it for 2 years. There's no guarantee I'm gonna open it in the spring if you approve it. But my intention is to, if the council allows it. And I know there's a little opposition, but I can tell you from my perspective and from my seat, it's been 98% positive and just 2% negative. And I can tell you that I had a dozen, maybe close to a dozen times during this year that I had people thank me. They said, thank you. It was, for me, sorry, I'm an emotional guy. I'm not trying to hold together there, but I took great joy in a father that spent an hour with their daughter hitting golf balls. And he said, thanks, man, I got to spend a little time with. So that's where my come from on this, is it's more of a service to the community. I mean, like I say, for profit, yeah. I'm not doing this for free. I'm greedy. Apparently I'm greedy. And it is public lands, and that's the other concern. But like I say, in my opinion, I've drawn more people to use that beach in this past year because I've spent so much time down there that I think it's been a benefit, and I would encourage the city and council to allow more use of public lands for people to enter entrepreneur, and if it fits in, because we're too small. We're not going to have an opportunity to do some things if some people don't take it upon themselves to do it and take a risk and invest a little. So it don't make no money. It makes a little bit of money. It's going to cover my expense hopefully in the next 2 years. So, anyway.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Lane and Doug put a little bit of blood and sweat into building it. But Lane and I, it became date night for us, and I love golfing. And so it became a place for me to just wail at those things and have so much fun. And we didn't ever have, and he has the safety, so if someone does come, these balls come down. And we never had one time of people being on that beach while we were out there. And it's nice to have something entertaining and fun to do and cheap. And it was clean and.
I don't believe we've had one complaint from somebody on the beach who said that they kept hitting golf balls. Because I've gone on the beach when they were doing it, because my stupid dog ran out there and they stopped immediately. So it's like, I appreciated that. I had no problem with them. They waited till I got the dog off the beach and we signaled each other and things were good once I got her back on the leash. But my grandkids love it, so.
That's one of the things they agree to by using the facility, is that that the general public has prior use. You're done, you stop till it's clear. If they wanna have a picnic, then you go home, kind of thing, so. Yeah.
Council?
That was my only question. Has there been any known conflicts? And it doesn't sound like there has been, so.
So I can say from the police department standpoint, the only thing that has ever been an involvement is unfortunately Doug being a victim.
Right.
And you should have received some restitution, because we did.
Yes, I have.
There was a total of like 12 different youth combined over several different incidences. But like Doug said, I mean, it's not his fault. It falls on the parents of the kids.
I went over there one night when they were banging on the building and shoot them away, but, yeah, that probably wasn't the only time they were doing it, so.
You have game cams out there?
They did, and they were found and they busted them and so.
Wow.
Cameras keep honest people honest.
That's one of the things I'm gonna try to remedy before spring, is better security for everybody's sake.
Right.
Keep the honest ones honest.
If you put the sign up and you get the ones that will send the signal, they're not that expensive, and it's only, even here, AT&T doesn't charge you that much to send it right to your phone, and it records, they're freaking amazing. Yeah. Yeah. They work. Good.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. On the very last page,
Yes.
you were requesting that the branches be trimmed.
Could you have permission to trim them myself?
Okay.
And that was in the original permit that he gave permission to last year, and I was unable to do it because it's quite a challenge to try to trim a tree without equipment or being 100 feet tall. I've got a
Stand on your shoulders and
broke chainsaw that you throw over to try, but it didn't work too well. That was the last thing. But I figured I wouldn't harm any trees. And the platform, I sacrificed 2 small alders, but that tree that the platform is on is built specifically on a bump so that I've not hurt those trees that they're living, so when that structure comes off, that it will grow back in, and you know how it is around here, 5 or 10 years, you'll never know if anything's there. And in the meantime, I continue to search for somewhere else, because that was a big concern that was voiced last year, but that's a tall order, so that's why I'm asking for at least 2 years.
So tonight, what we're doing is just to tell staff whether we want them to prepare a resolution for the next meeting. I don't have a problem with it.
That's great.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, we can move on the resolution at the next meeting, Doug. Okay, update on ANSCA landless legislation.
Mr. Chairman. Recently received contact from Senator Murkowski, staff at Senator Murkowski's office asking if the council wanted to weigh in on some alternative sites for land selections on Prince of Wales from proposed new ANSCA corporation that would be based in Ketchikan. As the council might recall, it sent comments into Senator Murkowski's office for Ketchikan Corporation lands that were proposed for selection near Red Bay and on Northwest Hecata Island. After the Senator's office received comments last summer, the staff was here. There was a fair amount of resistance to those selections. The ANSCA Landless Group got back together and proposed selections instead on Gravina Island and here at Chomley Sound here on Prince of Wales at Kitcoon Bay. Those selections are shown in the particularly dark shading here on Gravina Island and here at Chalmers. So knowing that this issue is foremost on the minds of locals, at least it was when the issue was brought up a number of months ago, staff bringing this to the council to get an idea on initial response to this proposed alternate potential parcels, as they're called in the proposal. So staff can get back to Mr. Field and provide some feedback. So it doesn't have to be done tonight, but if the council's got an inclination or specific direction for the council, we'll of course follow suit.
Council?
Jim, my opinion on this is pretty much the same as it was prior. I mean, I don't understand why they can't make these claims over in their own area instead of reaching out onto Prince of Wales. And this only addresses the Ketchikan issue. It doesn't address the Wrangell people or the other people. They're still making their choices off of Prince of Wales, I think, at some point. So I'm still concerned that they're over here just taking land off of here because they figure it's easy to take. And I think that they need to give them their land in their backyard, not over here in our backyard. That's just kind of the way I'm still looking at it.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, tell them we like the area that's close to Ketchikan, but like the mayor said, they didn't even have anything on the other selections from Wrangell.
I'm not sure that Wrangell's reconsidering their selections. I haven't heard one way or the other. This is just from the Ketchikan group.
I have to assume that on our things, instead of being dark, it's blue. I have to assume that's the last timber left down in Chomley if they picked it. So
there are logging roads through that area, so yeah. I assume that there's some infrastructure in place there and probably some timber left.
Yeah.
I would have one comment on this. I do appreciate that they've picked, some of the land in Gravina. I think that's appropriate. Looking at the land they've chosen in Chomley, I'm still, not real happy about continuing to see Prince of Wales, the land base here fractured more. I do. It is adjacent to other corporate holdings, and it is not connected to the road system on the island. So it's not near as likely to have a diminishing effect on a future young growth industry on our island. That's my perception of it. So I still would rather see nothing no further in holdings on the island, but they've made an effort to make some improvements, and I want to acknowledge that.
I agree, Mike, but there is, from what me and John could tell, there is some logging roads in there, and there was a landing there where they had a place to load logs out and all that stuff in place on part of that, where they haven't shaded in that they want. So there was previous logging activity in that area at some point. I don't know, but I just feel that they should be picking over there in their backyard. And like I said, this is just Ketchikan. It doesn't address Wrangell or the other ones that have land selections on Prince of Wales. We're just flat running out of land to give away over here. So
I know.
Sorry, go ahead.
Anyway, I have friends in Ketchikan who currently go into that landing and they hunt that there now. Now, supposedly, they're not supposed to take away people's current rights, but then again, you read that bill and it's like, unless they say so, it's like, I would bet some of the people in Ketchikan, when they see this, are gonna go into outer orbit. That's one of them, there's some decent timber in there. And they hunt there, the people from Ketchikan.
Would the council prefer to see a draft letter at the next meeting before we send something in writing to the office?
There's gotta still be some more stuff over on Cleveland.
Okay.
Okay. So, John knows where we stand pretty much on that. So, we have any council comments tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it was very, very nice to see staff here tonight. I feel like we're kind of getting back to normal from our COVID ordeal. It was nice to see staff.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just would, this is John's last meeting. I would like to acknowledge, his tenure here. It's done a lot for our community, and it's we're really thankful for the opportunity to work with him. And I worked with him, and we were both employees of the city. He's on contract now, but it's been great to work with him, and his thoroughness has been terrific. It's been great for our community. John's recognized throughout the state, certainly Southeast Conference, Municipal League, places like that, for his contributions. He steps up on PowCAC and all the different things he's done on the island. He's led meetings and kept things going. He's just been a tremendous asset. I hate to see him go, but I also understand we all have a time when we have to move on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John.
Thank you.
We've all done it. So, how many years I worked with John when he was a planner, and then John stepped up and he was my boss when I was across the street, and it was very good to work for. And I just know, since I've been with the city of Craig, which is a really long time, since 1985, this city has grown by leaps and bounds, and the quality of things around here have increased every single year to the thanks of first Tom Briggs, and then many, many years of Mr. John Bowen. You're missing.
So good luck in your new endeavor, whatever that happens to be, John.
Appreciate it.
And if you get bored, you could always come back.
After John first got hired here and he came over here, we met. We were both employees. We met, and so I had a new skiff, or I had an old skiff with a new engine I was putting on it, and I asked John if he could help me put the engine on it. And we did it down at the city shop. And so we we're putting an 85 Yamaha on the back of my new boat, and it slipped. Fell on his foot. Escaped it. Bam! Around his foot. Hobbling around for a while. That was like just a month or two after he'd been here or something.
So it's a tough place then.
Sure, yeah, comment?
Yes, I wanted to invite the council, tomorrow, John did not want to have a party, but I kind of didn't quite listen completely. So we're having a luncheon tomorrow, starting at noon and then through the afternoon, so you guys are, I'm inviting you guys to be back. Join us. Sorry, John.
Yeah. One more thing, so, most of you guys know I worked for TNC for years, and TNC actually did some projects with Craig, Paula and things like that. Again, John was very helpful on that. And, I told my former boss, Christine Wold, that, John was retiring, and this happened really, especially with the contract coming out and everything going as quick as it did. She hasn't been able to get an official thank you to him, but she did want me to acknowledge from TNC's behalf, the great partnership that TNC has had with the city and for projects, and particularly the leadership of John and the different things that we've worked with the city on. So, Nature Conservancy would also like to acknowledge your work.
It's been very rewarding working for the city. I'm grateful to the council today and the past 30 years for being so supportive and interested in doing things and taking risks. So that's made it particularly interesting, and as I said already, very rewarding. And I have to acknowledge working with the staff. I've worked with a lot of very talented people over the years, and it's made all the difference. Thank you.
Again, thank you, John.
And I should say especially thank you to my wife for putting up with absence and all kinds of inconveniences and hardships over the years. Thank you, honey.
I remember when the girls were little, and they'd come sneaking in, and they'd just peek at Dad, and then they'd giggle, and they'd leave. That seems like yesterday.
Okay. Are there any more comments?
Second.
Okay, moving in second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.